The first time I realized my family could erase me with paperwork, it wasn't in a courtroom. It was in my mother's kitchen, under the yellow light above the sink, when I found a brand new deadbolt on a door I'd had a key to since I was 16. I stood there in my suit, still wearing my probate court visitor badge like a bruise, and tried my key anyway. Metal on metal, the wrong cut, the wrong life. Inside, someone laughed. My sister's laugh, too bright, too practiced. My name is Evan Mercer, and I came back to Cedar Ridge, Tennessee because my mother's heart fell silent on a Thursday, and the funeral was Sunday. I told myself I came for closure. That's what people say when they don't want to admit they came for answers. Mom ran Mercer Outdoor Supply, a regional chain that started as a bait shop and became something bigger. She was the kind of woman who kept handwritten ledgers even after the accountants begged her to go digital. She loved control. She loved clarity. She loved signatures. At the service, my sister Lila clung to our stepfather Grant like gravity was optional. Grant's hand stayed on the small of her back a beat too long each time someone hugged her. Nobody commented. In our family, silence was policy. After the burial, Grant announced we'd have a simple meeting with Mom's attorney. Simple meant, sit down, don't interrupt, let the adults decide what you deserve. I'm 39, I'm a CPA, I still felt 12. Attorney Marjorie Klein didn't offer condolences, she offered folders. The estate will proceed smoothly, she said, eyes on the documents, not us, provided everyone cooperates. That's when I saw it. An amended trust dated 3 weeks before Mom's passing, transferring voting control of the company to a new entity, Mercer Legacy Holdings, LLC. I'd never heard of it. Lila didn't blink. Grant didn't blink. Marjorie slid the page toward me like it was a menu. Sign the acknowledgement, she said, and we can avoid complications. I looked down at the signature line, and my throat went tight, because the signature printed above it, my mother's, was just slightly wrong. The M leaned left, like it was trying to get away. And then my sister leaned in and whispered almost kindly, "Don't make this ugly, Evan. You're not built for it." I lifted my pen anyway, until Marjorie added softly, "Also, before you sign, you should know, your access to the company accounts has already been revoked." I drove to the store I'd grown up in, the flagship location off Route 14, and tried to enter through the employee door out of habit. The keypad flashed red. Access denied. The glass reflected my face back at me, tired eyes, tie slightly crooked, the look of a man who had believed in rules too long. Inside, I could see new signage taped to the window. Mercer Legacy, under new management. Not temporary, not interim, new. I called my old office number, straight to voicemail. I called my controller, Nina, and got a text back that didn't sound like her. Per HR, please direct all inquiries to Mr. Grant Mercer. Mr. Grant Mercer. As if he'd earned my name by marriage and paperwork. That night, I went to Mom's house, the house I'd helped remodel after my first big promotion. The one where she'd insisted we keep the original porch swing because memories need a place to sit. The deadbolt was real. So were the changed locks on the back door. Through the window, I saw my mother's framed photo, our last Christmas, turned face down on the mantel like it was in timeout. Grant answered after my third knock. He didn't open the chain. He didn't invite me in. He just stood there in a crisp button-down, calm the way predators are calm. "Evan," he said, like we were neighbors, "we're all exhausted. Let's not do this." "Do what?" I asked. "Come home?" Grant smiled, thin. "This isn't your home." Behind him, Lila appeared, hair still damp as if she'd just showered. She held a mug with both hands, and for a second I flashed to when we were kids, she'd steal my hot chocolate and swear it tasted better because it was mine. Now, she watched me like I was a stranger trying to sell her something. "I want the trust documents," I said. "All of them, not the highlight reel." Marjorie's voice floated from somewhere deeper in the house. "Grant, is that him?" So the lawyer was here, at my mother's house, after dark, with the locks changed. My stomach did that slow, sick roll it used to do before exams, before audits, before any moment when the numbers lied. Grant's hand tightened on the door. "You can contest it," he said, soft and confident. "But you'll lose. Your mother made her wishes clear." Lila added, "And Evan, don't pretend you didn't know what you were doing to her." "What I was doing," I repeated, because the accusation came out of nowhere. Grant finally unhooked the chain and opened the door just wide enough to slide something toward me. A manila envelope. Inside was a medical capacity evaluation. A letter stating my mother had been confused and influenced regarding business decisions and that I had pressured her. The letter was dated 2 days before the trust amendment, signed by a doctor I'd never heard of. And at the bottom, in small print, was the phrase that made my hands go cold. Durable power of attorney, activated. The next morning, I went to probate court like it was a church, and I was chasing forgiveness. I pulled the case file and read every line the way I read tax code. Slowly, suspiciously, assuming the danger was hidden in the commas. Grant had filed the POA activation and the trust amendment the same week. Clean, efficient, like he'd been waiting. I called the clinic on the evaluation. The receptionist cheerfully told me the doctor, Dr. Halverson, no longer practices here, and then, after a pause, added, "Sir, I'm not authorized to discuss patients." "I'm her son," I said. "Then you'll understand," she replied, voice suddenly flatter, "that we follow procedure." Procedure. The favorite word of people who never have to live with the consequences. I hired my own attorney, Joel Ramirez, Nashville, sharp suit, tired eyes. He didn't offer optimism, he offered strategies. "Capacity cases are ugly," he said, "and your stepfather's got the advantage. He's holding the narrative." "Then we change the narrative," I said. Joel nodded like he'd heard that confidence before, from clients who didn't yet understand blood is its own kind of evidence. "We start with documents," he said. "We start with the signatures." At home, my hotel room, because home was now a key I didn't have, I spread the trust pages across the bed. My mother's signature appeared 3 times. The first 2 looked like her. The third, the one on the amendment, was wrong in a way only a son would notice. Not a forgery, exactly, more like traced. I remembered being 8, watching her sign Christmas cards, the way her wrist flicked at the end like she was finishing a sentence. This signature ended like it got interrupted. Then the flashback hit me hard and clean. Mom at the kitchen table years ago, whispering, "If anyone ever tries to move the company without you, Evan, you don't argue, you audit." Back then it sounded like advice. Now it sounded like a warning. Joel filed an emergency motion for preservation of records. Within hours, Grant's attorney responded, Marjorie, of course, claiming I was harassing the estate and risking employee stability. Stability. Another word people use when they mean control. That afternoon, Nina finally called me from a number I didn't recognize. Her voice shook. "I'm not supposed to talk," I said. "They locked down the accounting system," she whispered. "New permissions, new vendor approvals. Everything routes through a holding company." "Mercer Legacy," I said. She exhaled. "And Evan, they told everyone you were under investigation for embezzlement." My vision narrowed. "That's insane." "I know," she said, "but there's more. I saw a wire request, drafted, not sent yet, for $1.8 million. Destination account Stonebridge Escrow. Escrow. The word tasted like a hidden sale. "Who authorized it?" I asked. Nina hesitated. "Your mother's digital signature." I stared at the wall, hearing my sister's whisper in my head, "Don't make this ugly." And then Nina said the part that made my mouth go dry. "The wire memo says, closing, Friday." Friday was 3 days away. I went to the Mercer warehouse like a man returning to a crime scene. The air smelled like rubber boots and gasoline, the comfort scent of my childhood. Every shelf, every label system, my work. I'd modernized it after college, convinced Mom to adopt barcode tracking. I had built order out of chaos. Now, 2 security guards stood at the entrance, hands folded, eyes polite and empty. One of them recognized me and looked away. "Mr. Mercer," he said, like it was a title I used to own. "We were told you can't enter." "By who?" I asked, though I already knew. He glanced at his clipboard. "Mr. Grant Mercer." I didn't argue with him. I walked to the loading bay and waited for the shift change. Not because I wanted to sneak in like a thief, but because sometimes the only way to get truth is to move like it's forbidden. When the door cracked open, Tyrell, an old dock manager, saw me and froze. His face softened with something that felt like loyalty and guilt mixed together. "They're watching everything," he murmured, letting me into the shadow of stacked crates. "You shouldn't be here." "I shouldn't be locked out," I said. "What's happening?" Tyrell's eyes flicked toward the office windows above. "Grant brought in his own people, consultants. They don't ask questions, they issue orders. And your sister, she's here every day." "Lila doesn't run operations," I said. Tyrell gave a humorless laugh. "She runs Grant." I asked for the shipping logs. Tyrell shook his head, but he slipped me something from his pocket, an invoice copy, folded small. It wasn't for inventory. It was for locksmith services and document storage relocation. Document storage. That meant the file room. The old file room with Mom's paper backups. I went there first. The door was open, but the room was wrong. Empty shelves, dust lines where boxes used to be, like someone had scraped the past clean. Only one box remained. On top, a bright sticker that said, "Duplicate Dispose." I lifted the lid and found a stack of forms, vendor contracts, payroll summaries, and a single quitclaim deed for a small property I'd never heard of, a lakeside cabin in Kentucky. The deed transferred the cabin from my mother to my sister, dated 5 years ago. But the notary stamp was fresh. The ink still smelled sharp. Behind me, the office phone rang once, and the sound made me flinch like a caught kid. Tyrell whispered, "They're coming." I shoved the quitclaim deed into my jacket and slipped out the back just as Grant's voice boomed from the hallway. "I want that room cleared today, no exceptions." In the parking lot, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered. Marjorie's voice, smooth as polished wood. "Evan, I'm advising you to stop." "Why?" I asked. A pause. Then, "Because if you push, certain personal matters become relevant." "What personal matters?" I snapped. She didn't answer directly. She only said, "Your mother wrote a letter. It names you. It also explains you." My pulse jumped. "Where is it?" "In safekeeping," she said, "and it stays that way if you behave." I hung up, shaking, and that's when I noticed a black SUV across the lot, engine running. The passenger window lowered just enough for me to see Lila's face. She raised her phone, filming me, smiling like she'd already won. I slept 2 hours and dreamed in fragments. My mother's hands counting cash at the register. My sister's braids swinging as she ran down the dock at the lake. Grant's voice calling my name like it was an accusation. When I woke, Joel had forwarded me a court notice. Temporary restraining order request filed by Grant for harassment and intimidation. He was building a cage out of paper, and he was doing it fast. Joel met me at his office. He laid out the reality like a spreadsheet. "Grant's making you the villain," he said. "He's going to claim you're unstable, that you're trying to seize assets." "What assets?" I asked bitterly. "They already seized them." Joel leaned forward. "We need leverage. A lie collapses faster when you touch the part it's standing on." So I did what Mom taught me. I audited. I pulled public records for Mercer Legacy Holdings, LLC. The registered agent was a generic law service in Chattanooga. The mailing address was a P.O. box, but the formation documents had one detail people forget to scrub: an initial capital contribution. It listed a bank. Stonebridge. Same name Nina mentioned. Same escrow company for the Friday closing. I drove to Stonebridge's office. Glass building. Soothing lobby music. The kind of place where money goes to get cleaned. The receptionist smiled until I said, "I'm Evan Mercer, and I need to verify an escrow transaction connected to Mercer Legacy." Her smile didn't vanish. It rearranged into caution. Do you have an appointment? No, I said, but I have a right. She picked up the phone and made a call without looking away from me. 2 minutes later, a man in a gray suit appeared. Mr. DeWitt, he introduced himself, eyes cold. We can't discuss client matters, he said, tone rehearsed. I'm the beneficiary of the estate, I lied, because sometimes truth needs a disguise. He studied me. The estate is represented by counsel, he replied. If you have concerns, speak to them. I am speaking to them, I said, and they're lying. DeWitt's jaw tightened. He gestured for me to follow him into a small conference room. On the table sat a single sheet, an escrow summary, face down. He didn't flip it. He didn't have to. The threat was the point. You should go, he said quietly, for your own sake. I left, but not empty-handed. In the lobby, I saw a familiar figure step out of the elevator, Grant. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked entertained. You're persistent, he said. Your mother always said you were stubborn. She also said you were temporary, I shot back. Grant's smile stayed. Friday, he said, almost gently. A lot changes on Friday. As he walked away, Lila joined him, slipping her arm through his like a spouse, not a stepdaughter. The gesture was small, casual, too casual. On the drive back, Nina texted me a photo from inside the accounting system. Someone had uploaded a PDF titled Evan Mercer, Internal Findings. I opened it, heart pounding. It wasn't a report, it was a confession, written in my name, admitting I stole from the company. And at the bottom was a scanned signature that looked exactly like mine. Except I'd never signed it. Joel's face didn't change when I showed him the fake confession. That scared me more than anger would have. They're preparing to neutralize you, he said. This is the play. Tarnish your credibility, isolate you, then finalize the sale before you can breathe. Sale of what? I asked, though I could feel the answer forming. The company, Joel said, or its assets, inventory, real estate, brand, anything liquid. I went back to the hotel and opened my laptop like it was a weapon. I compared the confession signature to my last year's tax filings, my real signature. The curve of the E, the pressure points. There was a mismatch in the downstroke, subtle but consistent. A copier can fake shape, but it can't fake rhythm. Still, proof isn't power until someone cares. That night, I got my first real break from someone I didn't expect. Aunt Marlene, my mother's older sister. She'd been quiet at the funeral, eyes wet but mouth tight. She called now and said, "Evan, I need to see you, alone." We met at a diner off the interstate, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like survival. Marlene slid a small tin across the table, an old biscuit tin Mom used to keep buttons in. "Your mother asked me to hold this," Marlene said. "Said if anything happened, I was to give it to you when you were ready to stop being polite." Inside was a USB drive and a folded letter, sealed with tape. My hands shook as I opened the letter. It wasn't a will. It was Mom's handwriting. Tight, angry, the kind I'd only seen when she wrote a complaint to a vendor. She wrote that Grant had been pressuring her for months to streamline the estate. That he'd pushed her toward a new doctor. That he'd insisted on evaluations. That he'd said the company needed a younger face. Then the line that made my stomach flip. If Lila tells you she's doing this for security, don't believe her. She's doing it for Grant. And Grant is doing it for someone else. Someone else? Marlene watched me swallow. Your mother wasn't afraid of losing money, she said. She was afraid of losing you. I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did Mom trust Lila? Marlene's eyes flickered. Your mother loved her. That's different. Back in my room, I plugged in the USB. A folder opened labeled, "If you need to prove it." Inside, scanned emails, appointment confirmations, bank alerts, and one video file. I clicked it. Mom sat at her kitchen table, face pale, voice low. "Evan," she said, looking straight at the camera like she could see through time. "If you're watching this, they've already started. Listen. The trust amendment isn't real. I never signed it. And if they tell you I did, a sound off camera, footsteps, a door. Mom's eyes snapped left, fear flashing. The video ended abruptly. And then my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Stop digging, or the letter goes public. Attached was a photo, my mother's handwriting again, but this time it looked like a confession about me, about something I'd never done. By Thursday morning, the town felt smaller, like the walls had shifted while I slept. People I'd known since Little League wouldn't meet my eyes at the gas station. A cashier who used to call me Baby Evan slid my change back like it burned. Grant wasn't just taking assets, he was taking my name. Joel filed an injunction request using Marlene's letter and the signature discrepancy. Marjorie responded within an hour with a motion accusing us of fabricating evidence and exploiting grief. She attached a statement from Dr. Halverson describing Mom as highly suggestible and prone to confusion. Confusion. That word again, like a blanket they could throw over any inconvenient truth. I went to the cabin deed again, the quitclaim I'd stolen from the file room. I drove to the notary listed on the stamp. The address led me to a strip mall. The suite was empty, for lease, sign taped to the glass. No notary, no business, just absence. Then, in the parking lot, I saw a woman leaning against her car smoking. She watched me watch the door. "You looking for Denise?" she asked. "Do you know her?" I said. The woman exhaled smoke slowly. "Used to." She notarized whatever people paid her to notarize. Then she vanished. "Where?" I asked. She laughed without humor. "Where do people vanish when they sign the wrong thing for the wrong family?" My phone rang. Nina. She didn't whisper this time. "They're doing it," she said. "The wire's queued, the closing packet's printed. And Evan, Grant brought in a buyer rep." "Who?" I asked. "I saw the name on the folder," she said. "Blackwater Retail Partners." Blackwater. Private equity. The kind of buyer that turns family companies into numbers and throws the rest away. I drove straight to Mercer Outdoor Supply headquarters, fueled by panic and something harder, rage. In the lobby, a new receptionist smiled like she didn't know my mother's favorite mug was still in the break room. Security stepped in front of me. "Mr. Mercer," the guard said, uneasy, "please leave." "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here to see my mother's office." Grant emerged, calm as ever. "Your mother's office belongs to the company," he said. "And the company belongs to the trust. And the trust," he spread his hands, "isn't yours." Lila appeared behind him, wearing Mom's pearl earrings. That small theft hit me harder than the legal ones. "You think you're saving her legacy," I said to Lila, "but you're selling it." She tilted her head. "You always talked like you owned her," she said, "like you were the only one who mattered to her." "That's not what this is," I said. "Isn't it?" she murmured, eyes shining with something I couldn't read. Grant stepped closer and lowered his voice. "You want a deal, Evan? Walk away. Let Friday happen, and I won't release the letter." "What letter?" I asked, though I knew. He smiled. "The one that explains who you really are. The one that'll make everyone stop calling you son and start calling you problem." Then he leaned in, close enough that I smelled his cologne and something bitter underneath. "Your mother told me things," he whispered. "About you. About that summer you left for school early." I froze. Because the summer he meant was the summer my father disappeared from our lives, without explanation, without goodbye. And Grant had just implied he knew why. That night, I drove to the lake where we used to spend summers before everything fractured. The docks still creaked in the same places. The air still smelled like wet wood and old sunscreen. Memory is cruel that way. It preserves what it wants, not what you need. I sat in my truck and replayed Grant's words until they stopped sounding like a threat and started sounding like leverage. He wasn't guessing. He was holding something. I called Marlene. "Tell me about Dad," I said, "the real reason he vanished." Silence on the line. Then she said, carefully, Your mother told you he went west for work. That's the story, I said. I want the truth. Marlene's voice softened, and I heard the ghost of our old family in it, the version where adults protected kids with half-truths. Your father didn't go west, she said. He went into hiding. Hiding from what? Marlene exhaled. From a lawsuit, from debt, from things he signed. Things he signed, always signatures. When I hung up, I opened Mom's USB files again and dug deeper. Buried in the folder was a PDF labeled 1999 Settlement Draft, the year my father vanished. I opened it and felt my blood turn cold. It was a settlement agreement between Mercer Outdoor Supply, Mom's tiny shop back then, and a man named Grant Harlow. Grant's last name wasn't Mercer, it was Harlow. The document described a confidential arrangement involving shares transferred quietly, a promise of future compensation, and a clause that made my stomach drop. In exchange for full release, the parties agreed to maintain secrecy regarding paternity-related claims. Paternity. The room tilted. I stared at the word until it stopped being letters and became a weapon. I remembered the way Grant slid into our lives not long after Dad vanished. How Mom suddenly had help. How bills got paid. How the shop expanded. How Grant always watched me like I was an obstacle, not a stepson. The next file I opened was worse. A scanned DNA test order, never completed, addressed to my mother, dated 2 decades ago. My hands shook so badly I could barely use the trackpad. My phone buzzed. A message from Lila. I didn't want it to be like this. Meet me. Alone. Mom's greenhouse. 11 p.m. The greenhouse. The one behind the house, where Mom grew orchids like fragile secrets. I should have told Joel. I should have refused. But the truth is, when your life is collapsing, you run toward the first person who sounds human. At 10:58, I stepped into the greenhouse and smelled damp soil and sweetness. Lila was already there, backlit by a single lamp, looking smaller than she'd looked in years. I'm not your enemy, she said. Then why are you doing this? I asked. Her eyes filled. Because Grant will destroy you if I don't. Why? I pressed. What does he have? Lila swallowed hard. He has the letter, and Evan, he has something else, something Mom tried to keep from you. I leaned forward. Say it, she whispered, voice shaking. Grant isn't just your stepfather. And before I could answer, the greenhouse door clicked behind me, locked from the outside. Grant's voice floated through the glass, calm and amused. Family meeting, no witnesses. The air in the greenhouse turned thick, like even oxygen was choosing sides. Lila's hands trembled as she reached for the latch, but it didn't budge. Outside, Grant's silhouette moved slowly along the glass like he had all night. Open it, I shouted. Grant chuckled. Relax, Evan. Nothing's going to happen. I just need you two to understand your roles. Lila's face went pale. Grant, stop. This isn't what Mom wanted. Don't speak for her, he snapped, the first crack in his composure. Then his voice smoothed again. You always did that, pretending you were the interpreter of her heart. I looked at Lila. Tell me, I said, what were you about to say? Her mouth opened, closed. Tears gathered but didn't fall. Mom told me, she whispered, that if you ever found out, you'd hate her, and you'd hate me. Hate you for what? I demanded. Grant's shadow stopped moving. For existing, he said through the glass, like it was a joke. Then he slid something under the greenhouse door, a printed packet. On top was the letter he'd been threatening, the one explaining me. Only now I saw it for what it was, a trap. It was written in my mother's handwriting, yes, but the phrasing was wrong, the rhythm off. Someone had copied her style like a costume. It accused me of coercion, financial manipulation, and emotional intimidation. The last page was signed, dated, and notarized by the same vanished notary. You're going to take that to the judge tomorrow, Grant said, voice sweet. You're going to withdraw your injunction, and you're going to watch the closing happen. What if I don't? I asked, throat tight. Grant paused. Then I released the real file, he said. The 1999 file, the paternity one. The one that makes everyone in this town look at your mother like she crossed lines mothers aren't supposed to cross. I felt Lila flinch beside me, like the words struck her too. I suddenly understood the shape of the secret under our family. It wasn't just money, it was identity, it was shame. And Grant had been feeding on it for decades. I forced myself to breathe. You can't sell the company Friday, I said. We filed for preservation. Grant laughed. You filed, but you didn't win. Outside, headlights washed across the yard. A car pulled up, another, footsteps, voices, Marjorie Klein's voice, Joel's voice, then Nina's voice, high, urgent. He's in there, he locked them in. My heart slammed. Joel had followed me. Nina had too, they weren't playing safe anymore. Grant's shadow jerked. What did you do? He hissed at Lila. I didn't, she started. But I had. Without thinking, I'd shared my location with Joel hours earlier, a habit from my audit days. Always leave a trail. The greenhouse door rattled as Joel shouted, Open it, Grant, now! Grant's voice turned sharp. You want to do this in public, Evan? Fine. He swung the door open hard enough to make the frame groan. The night air hit my face like a slap. Flashlights blinded me. Grant stood there with Marjorie beside him, expression icy. Nina hovered behind, eyes wild. Joel moved to my side, and then Grant lifted a folder over his head like a trophy. Here, he announced to everyone. The truth Evan's been hiding. He opened it and pulled out a document stamped by a court clerk. A petition, filed in my name, requesting full control of the estate and declaring Lila unfit due to inappropriate dependency. It was forged, but it looked real. And in the flash of light I saw Lila's face, hurt, betrayed, furious, because this time even she believed it might be me. The next 48 hours were a blur of filings, sworn statements, and the kind of exhaustion that makes your body feel borrowed. But chaos has a strange gift. It forces truth into the open because lies require calm to survive. Joel moved fast. He got the forgery petition flagged by the clerk's office within hours. Wrong submission ID, mismatched metadata. Nina pulled system logs showing the petition had been uploaded from an IP address inside headquarters, Grant's office. Marlene provided the original biscuit tin letter and testified that Mom had asked her to safeguard it. And most importantly, we filed an emergency motion to freeze the Friday closing. Marjorie tried to bulldoze through with procedure and posture, but the judge, tired, human, not impressed, asked one question that changed everything. Why, he said, staring at Grant, did you change the locks on a decedent's home before the inventory process was complete? Grant's jaw worked, and for the first time, he looked like a man losing his script. The court granted a temporary restraining order against the asset transfer, freezing the escrow. Blackwater backed off immediately. Private equity hates noise. The sale didn't collapse dramatically. It just disappeared, like a predator realizing the meal bites back. Then came the second hearing, the one Grant feared. Joel didn't lead with paternity or shame. He led with money, because judges understand money. We proved the trust amendment signature was manipulated. We proved Dr. Halverson's evaluation was arranged through a referral chain connected to Grant. And when Nina testified about the cued wire with Mom's digital signature, Joel simply asked her, "Did Ms. Mercer ever use that platform?" Nina swallowed. "No," she said. She refused. She said paper was harder to steal. In the hallway after the ruling, Lila found me. She looked stripped bare without the pearls, without Grant's arm. Just my sister again. Older, hurt, human. I didn't know how deep it went, she whispered. He told me he was protecting us. He was protecting himself, I said. She nodded, tears finally falling. Mom tried to tell me. About you, about him. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to hate her. I couldn't, not fully. Because families don't break in one clean snap. They fray, they wear down. They learn to live with wrong until wrong feels like normal. Grant didn't leave in handcuffs. Real life isn't tidy. He left with a court order limiting contact, a pending investigation into fraud, and a town that suddenly looked at him like a question mark. As for the secret file, the paternity language, the old settlement, Joel sealed it. Not because it didn't matter, but because Mom's last gift to me wasn't money. It was a chance to choose what kind of man I'd be with the truth. Mercer Outdoor Supply went into a court-supervised interim management plan. I returned to the books the way I was taught. Quietly, precisely, with receipts. I didn't win a war. I stopped a theft. I kept my mother's legacy from being converted into someone else's exit strategy. Weeks later, I finally got back into Mom's house. I replaced the deadbolt. I turned the photo upright, and I sat on the porch swing as the evening cooled, listening to the hinge creak like it always had. My phone buzzed once, an email from Marjorie, short and formal. We will be withdrawing as counsel for Mr. Harlow. Harlow, not Mercer. I stared at the name until it felt less like a revelation and more like a final correction. Because that's what this whole thing was. Not revenge, not victory, just the slow, brutal work of putting the truth back where it belonged.